General Arya Kane stood tall in the grand hall of the Threx Empire's flagship. Her boots echoed on the shiny black floor as she walked forward. Around her, alien officers watched with cold, unreadable eyes. Some whispered in their strange language. Others just stared at her like she didn't belong. She knew what they were thinking. A human? At a peace table? A woman? But Arya didn't care. She had fought on 10 planets. She had bled in 6 different wars. And she was here now alone too. Speak for Earth. The hall was huge, built for beings twice her size. The air smelled of metal and heat. Glowing red banners of the Threx Empire hung from the ceiling, each showing a burning sun surrounded by war spears. At the center of the room stood General Voctor, the commander of the Threx forces. He was tall, armored in dark red plating, and his yellow eyes glowed with power. He had conquered over 20 star systems. His name alone could scare a room silent, but Arya didn't flinch. She stepped up to the long black table and laid down the peace treaty, an old-fashioned printed version. Something humans still believed made things more serious. Vok Tar growled. You came alone? No guards? No war council? I don't need guards, Arya replied calmly. I'm not afraid of you. The room went still. The Threx officers growled quietly. One raised a weapon, but lowered it after Voctor raised his hand. You humans are strange, Voctor said, stepping closer. Too bold, too proud for a dying species. We're not dying, Arya said, her voice sharp but steady. We're adapting. And we're offering peace before anyone else dies. Voctor looked down at her. She was half his size, but her eyes never looked away. That bothered him. To him, humans were soft, weak, emotional, but this woman didn't show fear, not even a little. He stepped around the table, slowly like a predator. His soldiers smiled cruelly. Arya stood still. You think you can walk into my hall, he growled, and speak to me as an equal? I don't think, she said. I know. The room was silent. No one moved. Not even the air. Then, without warning, Voctor kicked her. His armored legs slammed into her side with full force, and she flew across the hall, crashing into a pillar. The sound echoed like thunder. Gasps and alien laughter filled the air. Arya didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She slowly stood up. Her face was calm, cold. A thin line of blood ran from her mouth. She wiped it away and looked at Voctor with eyes that no longer showed diplomacy. No peace, no mercy. Only calculation. Are we done here? She asked, voice like ice. Voctor laughed. Yes, little human. We are done. Arya nodded once and walked out of the hall without a word. Back on the human ship, 2 hours later, Captain Morales looked up from his station as the doors hissed open. Arya walked in, her uniform torn, her side bruised, but her face unreadable. General Kane? He asked, confused. What happened? She didn't answer him. Instead, she sat in her chair and spoke into the command channel. Activate Protocol Black, she said calmly. Every officer froze. One pilot dropped his cup. Another turned pale. Protocol Black hadn't been used in 50 years. It was buried deep in Earth's military system. Even speaking its name was forbidden without top-level clearance. Captain Morales whispered, Are you sure? Yes, she said. Full activation, no warnings. No communication. Understood. The ship's lights dimmed. Red emergency lines glowed along the walls. Old systems powered up. Hidden programs came alive. Far across space, on Earth's Shadow Moon, a silent base began to hum. Inside the shadows deep underground. In a base with no name, lights turned on in long-forgotten rooms. Cold metal doors opened with a hiss. Inside slept warriors. Not soldiers, ghosts. Men and women trained to fight without being seen. No emotions, no questions. Only orders. Each one had been part of Project Phantom. Each one had been trained by Arya Kane. They had no homes, no records, no memories outside the mission. They woke up and received a single message. Mission active. Threx General. Class of threat. Clean sweep authorization granted. They geared up in silence. On the Threx ship -3 hours after the kick General. Vokter stood on the command deck, looking out at the stars. His officers laughed, replaying the footage of him kicking the human general. "She will think twice before walking into our house again," one said. Vokter smirked. "Humans don't understand power. They need reminders." But behind his smile, something felt off. Her eyes had not shown fear. She had not begged. She had not even shouted. Why? Why was she so calm? He pushed the thought away. "Prepare the fleet," he said. "We move on the outer human colonies in one cycle." "Yes, sir." But in the quiet space beyond their sensors, something moved. Something small, invisible, deadly. Earth Broadcast Center. Message intercepted across the galaxy. News networks began showing strange signals. Static, hacked feeds. Glitches in military data. Then a face appeared. General Arya Kane. She stared directly into the camera. Her face was calm. Her voice was quiet. "To the Threx Empire," she said. "You made a mistake." The screen turned black. Then showed a burning Threx outpost. No survivors, no ships, no alarms. Just flames and shadows. And one message: "We remember everything." Conclusion of Part 1. Cliffhanger. General Vokter stared at the burning footage with wide eyes. "She was bluffing," he said, though his voice was less certain. But somewhere deep in the ship, a silent alarm went off. One of their outer watch stations had just gone dark. No ships had been seen. No signals had been sent. Just silence. And in the darkness, the shadows moved closer. Because Arya Kane didn't shout when she declared war. She whispered. And when she whispered, things disappeared. The silence on the human command ship, HSS Titanus, was heavy. Every officer felt it in their chest. Not fear yet, but a question. What did General Kane just start? She sat in the command chair, eyes locked on the dark window of space, unmoving. Her face still carried the bruise from the alien general's kick. She hadn't treated it. She hadn't spoken. She had only said 2 words, "Protocol Black." And that was enough to terrify every human officer in the room. The history they were told to forget. Protocol Black wasn't taught in normal military school. It was a ghost order whispered about in old war stories, locked deep in command files. Even captains like Morales weren't allowed to access its details. All they knew was that it meant only one thing: total, silent retaliation. No negotiations, no warnings, no survivors. The warning that never came. Lieutenant Chun leaned toward Captain Morales and whispered, "Sir, are we actually doing this?" "That was just a kick." Morales didn't answer immediately. He watched General Kane, her jaw clenched, one hand resting gently on the armrest. "No," Morales whispered back. "That wasn't just a kick. That was a message. From them." "No," Morales said quietly. "From her." Deep space. Message, received in a secure black site far from any star system. A red light blinked. Inside, an old AI system called Saber Zero woke from cold slumber. It ran a short message received from HSS Titanus. The message was less than 200 characters. Protocol Black active. Threx General engaged. Target class: Annihilation. The eye instantly calculated target vectors, fleet coordinates, and planetary strike zones. It then activated its only purpose: releasing Unit 13. The awakening of Unit 13, buried under Europa's icy crust, inside a forgotten bunker carved into bedrock. 13 human soldiers opened their eyes. They didn't ask why. They didn't need to. They had been trained for this exact kind of call, a call that would never come unless Earth had been deeply insulted, shamed, or someone Arya Kane personally cared about. had been touched. Inside the unit's mind, each soldier had been cyber-modified decades ago. Their hearts beat slower, minds sharper. Emotions were limited by neurofilters. Pain was optional. Their last mission 20 years ago ended with the complete destruction of a planetary warlord who thought Earth was weak. That footage never aired. It was buried. Only Arya Kane knew what they truly did. Only she could call them back. Threx Empire, arrogance. Rising. Meanwhile, aboard the Threx flagship Ravager's Will, General Vokter stood in front of a massive star map. Glowing red lines marked human colonies. He smirked. "The humans are emotional," he said to his second-in-command, Kelvar. "She will go home and cry to her leaders. They'll beg for peace next time." Kelvar didn't look as confident. "There are rumors, sir. Some humans don't respond like others." Vokter turned. "What are you saying?" Kelvar hesitated, then said, "She didn't flinch, General. She looked at you like she knew exactly what she would do." Vokter scoffed. "She's bluffing. They all bluff." Back on the human ship, the silence continues. Arya remained still in her chair. Junior officer tried to speak. "Ma'am, should we alert Earth Council?" She shook her head. "They'll learn about it the same time the Threx do." Captain Morales nodded slowly. "You don't want help?" "I don't need help," she replied. "I sent help." He understood. An empty outpost at the edge of Threx space. A lonely refueling station orbited a dying moon. It went dark in less than 90 seconds. No alarms. No energy spikes. No explosions. Just silence. The Threx would discover it was missing 6 hours later. But by then, another 2 would be gone. The first clue. Vokter frowned when reports started coming in. First, a station wasn't responding. Then, a scout ship vanished near a dust cloud. He ordered a basic investigation. No ships were found. No debris. Just static. Still, he didn't worry. "Minor problems," he said aloud. But he ordered more guards anyway, just in case. The message. From the shadows in a Threx base near the outer colonies, the night crew heard something strange. A human voice, humming. Then, their lights went out. Security cameras showed nothing. When backup arrived 14 minutes later, the base was empty. Not destroyed, not attacked, just gone. Arya's quiet signal on HSS Tightness. A screen blinked once. Target 1 neutralized. Target 2 complete. Target 3 scheduled 030 OGMT. Captain Morales turned to Arya. "They don't even know what hit them." "Do they?" Arya stood up. Her voice was calm. "They will." End of Part 2. Cliffhanger. The Threx Empire still didn't understand. They had kicked a general. They thought they'd bruised a soldier. Instead, they had awakened something far worse. A war they wouldn't even see coming. The last thing they'd hear would be her voice. In the black silence of Europa's frozen crust, the temperature was nearly absolute zero. But something stirred beneath the surface. It wasn't alive in the way people understood life. It was Unit 13. And it was waking up. The forgotten war machine. Bunker lights flickered on, one by one, revealing 13 human-shaped figures standing in cryotubes. Each tube bore a code, scratched into the glass, not printed, but etched by hand. Ghost 01, Ghost 02, Ghost 13. These were not just soldiers, they were ghosts of war, shadows made flesh. The product of Earth's darkest wartime project, Project Phantom. Built for silent operations. Programmed for absolute obedience. Modified to win wars before they ever began. Their minds weren't like normal soldiers. They didn't remember home. They didn't remember peace. They only remembered her. General Arya Kane, the awakening sequence. The cryopods hissed open. Frost melted off their bodies. Eyes opened cold, gray, and unblinking. They didn't scream. They didn't speak. They simply stepped out and waited. A steel screen blinked to life in front of them. Mission, retaliation objective, Eliminate Threx. Command clearance. Black Commanding Officer. Gen A. Kane. Rules of engagement. None. The voice of their creator. A final line played across the screen. Voice log. General Kane, you were made for this. This isn't war. This is cleaning up a mess. Leave no trace. Leave no doubt. That was all they needed. The 13 moved into gear. Armor locked into place. Weapons magnetically sealed. To their backs. Invisible to sensors, but deadly to anything living. Mission begins. Their stealth cruiser, the Eclipse, activated automatically. It had no crew, no life support. Just enough space for the ghosts. Its mission: drop them inside Threx territory without being seen. Threx Empire, still unaware, back on the Ravager's will. General Vokter continued to laugh off the missing outposts, probably equipment failures. He said as reports trickled in, or pirates. Humans wouldn't be this quiet if they attacked. His officers nodded nervously. But something in the room felt colder now. An unease crept through the ranks, like the air before a storm. Unit 13. First strike target 1 was a mobile Threx. Weapons lab on Moon Norsec 7. Threx guards patrolled the dome-shaped facility, armed with heavy plasma rifles. Drones hovered overhead, scanning for any movement. Then darkness. The power shut off. Emergency lights failed. In the next 62 seconds, 47 Threx soldiers vanished. Not a single sound was recorded. Cameras showed only shadows. Then static. When backup arrived, all they found was an empty base. Not destroyed. Not looted. Clean. Silent. Gone. Threx response. Confusion. General Vokter stood over the holo table, staring at the report. No survivors? He asked, voice low. None. No bodies, no energy weapons used. Just missing. How? The officer hesitated. We don't know. It's like they were erased. Vokter slammed his fist on the table. I want answers. I want satellites. I want every ship scanning space from here to their colonies. But it was already too late. Unit 13, second strike target. 2. Threx listening post in asteroid sector, Varnas-3. This one had time to send a warning. The technician shouted into his comms. We see movement. Humanoids, how did they get inside? Then the feed cut. They were gone. The transmission, recovered later, was only 5 seconds long. Enough to spread fear. On board the Eclipse, inside their stealth cruiser, Ghost 01 reviewed the data silently. He blinked once. Target confirmed. Next mission queued. Target 3. Threx Forward War Command. Outer Ring. The base was one of the strongest defensive positions the Threx had, and they were about to lose it. Arya Kane, calm before the storm on the HSS Titanus. Arya sat in a meditation chamber, alone, silent. She wasn't angry. She wasn't plotting. She had already set everything in motion. Captain Morales approached quietly. General, another report just came in. That's the third base. No survivors again. She opened her eyes slowly. How long until Vokter feels it? He feels it now, Morales said. He just doesn't understand what it is. Arya stood. Good. Let him wonder. Let him fear shadows. Inside Threx High commanding the capital. City of the Threx Empire, panic began to rise. Holoscreens flashed with red alerts. Colonies going silent. Bases vanishing. The Emperor himself summoned Vokter. General, the Emperor hissed. You said the humans would beg for mercy. Now they strike like ghosts. Vokter bowed. I will handle it. You already failed. To control one human general, the Emperor growled. Now she controls a weapon we can't see. Vokter said nothing, because he knew the Emperor was right. Ghost 07 leaves a message at their third target. One Threx commander was left alive on purpose. He was found tied to a chair, surrounded by his sleeping troops, every single one dead. Carved into the wall behind him were 3 human words. She remembers everything. End of Part 3 cliffhanger. The Threx Empire had made a mistake. They didn't just attack a human general. They touched Arya Kane. And now, her ghosts were spreading, one base at a time, one planet at a time. Soon, they wouldn't just fear her. They'd forget what it meant not to fear her. The Threx war fleet floated like a metal storm across the void. Over 200 warships, tens of thousands of soldiers. An empire's pride, spread across space and formation. They called it the Iron Spine, a symbol of power, a warning to lesser species. Something had slipped inside it, something invisible, and by the time the Threx noticed, it would already be far too late. Unit 13 enters the spine inside a storage container on one of the Threx supply barges. A small black cube hummed to life. It had no name, no weapons, no crew. Just a delivery system. The cube cracked open and Ghost 04 stepped out, one by one. 4 more followed. They were inside the enemy's heart. The Threx fleet didn't even know they had arrived. The first whisper of death at 0200 fleet time. The captain of Threx cruiser Darnuk entered the engine room for routine checks. All lights were off. He tried to turn them on. Nothing happened. He activated his comms. No signal. Then he saw it. 13 engineers lying in perfect lines on the floor. No blood. No wounds. Just ... dead. In the center of the room, the wall bore a human word scorched into the metal. Return. Fleet Command reacts. General Wachter received. The report 2 hours later. He didn't laugh this time. Scan every ship, all decks, all crew. I want every human found, captured, or burned. He didn't say it aloud, but he knew. This was her. Arya Kane. Inside the shadow. Shosto 9 moved silently through the crew corridors of Threx destroyer Kalvik. His footsteps made no sound. His presence didn't register on any sensor. He slid a thin black disc into a wall panel and vanished. A moment later, every oxygen valve in the weapons deck shut tight. 57 Threx troops collapsed without ever drawing a weapon. Their comms recorded only one final whisper. They're already here. Arya watches the reports back aboard the HSS Tightness. Captain Morale stared at the live updates. Ma'am, the enemy ships are turning in circles. They're scanning for something they can't find. Arya didn't look away from the screen. They won't find it. What happens when they do realize what's happening? She looked at him, calm and steady. By then, their ships won't work. Systems begin to fail across the fleet. Small malfunctions began. Engines hesitated during calibration. Targeting systems blinked out mid-diagnostics. Weapon bays locked shut. Drones refused to launch. The Threx thought it was a virus. They thought it was sabotage. They didn't know it was human hands, carefully rewriting their ship code. Threx command losing control. General. An officer cried. We're losing contact with 5 ships per hour. Wachter slammed his hand on the console. Bring them into formation. Seal every airlock. Assign triple guards. But sir, they're not being attacked. They're just failing. Wachter's eyes darkened. He leaned over the table and whispered to himself, she's bleeding us dry. The spy who survived on Threx frigate Herald. One comms technician survived an internal blackout. She hid inside a vent for 8 hours. She watched Ghost 07 walk calmly through the hall, bypassing guards without a single shot fired. She recorded 6 seconds of video. A human, masked, fully black armor, moving like fog. No footsteps, no sound, just presence. Later, when the video played in Threx High Command, it caused full panic. They had trained for open war, but they weren't fighting a war. They were being haunted. Return signal Unit 13 sent. A signal. No words, just a symbol, a black circle, no border, no sound. Back on HSS Tightness, Arya Kane received it. Captain Morale stared at the screen. What does that mean? It means, Arya said, standing up, they're ready. 4. What? She looked at him, voice low. For the storm. End of Part 4. Cliffhanger. The mighty Threx warfleet, the Iron Spine, was crumbling from within. No weapons had fired. No fleets had clashed. But Arya's ghosts had arrived. And once they entered, there was no saving what remained, because humans didn't fight like the others. They hunted, and the hunt had begun. Silence ruled the Threx warfleet. Ships drifted across space with no clear command. Crew vanished, systems collapsed. And worst of all, no one knew why. A strange broadcast appears at exactly 0700 galactic time. Every Threx military screen on every ship, every base, every scout station flickered to black. Then a human face appeared. It wasn't animated. It wasn't fake. It was General Arya Kane. She wasn't wearing armor. She wasn't surrounded by guards. She simply stood in a dark room, her uniform torn at the shoulder, her side still bruised where General Vokter had kicked her. But her eyes, they burned with control. Her words were quiet, but deadly. This is General Arya Kane, Earth Fleet Command. 2 days ago, I was assaulted during what your leaders called a peace talk. No formal declaration of war was given. You struck a human. You struck me. So I gave a response. She paused. The feed zoomed in slightly on her face. This is not a war. This is not diplomacy. This is your reminder. The screens changed. The screen behind her flickered and video played. Footage from Threx security cams. Soldiers vanishing mid-hallway. Outposts left with not a single body. A weapons lab shut down from the inside. A dreadnought exploding silently in deep space. 13 human figures walking through a base, untouched by weapons or flame. Then static again. Back to Arya. She finishes with a warning. You thought humans were weak. You thought you could kick one of us without consequence. You were wrong. I'm not asking for surrender. I'm giving you one chance. Stop moving toward Earth. Stop pretending you're in control. Because if I speak again, it'll be the last thing your empire hears. And just like that, the broadcast ended. Reaction in the Threx Empire. The Threx command deck went silent. Dozens of high-ranking officers stared at the frozen screen. General Vokter stood, fists clenched, jaw locked. She dares threaten us like this. He shouted. But no one responded. Some officers looked away. Others lowered their eyes, because they had seen the footage, and deep down, they were beginning to believe she wasn't threatening them. She was warning them. Emperor's Council in Panikeen. The royal city of Kavilmarn. The Threx Emperor summoned a private war council. Dozens of star generals sat around the glowing war table. None smiled. None spoke. I want solutions, the Emperor hissed. Where is Vokter's fleet? Why are we losing ships without fire? Without combat? The science minister spoke quietly. We believe human cyber commandos are inside our ships. They override systems from within. How many? Asked the Emperor. We don't know. Another general spoke up. And if Arya Kane's threat is real, she could cripple our fleet without ever appearing on a battlefield. Back on the human side on the HSS Titanus, the bridge was silent. The crew had just watched Arya's message go live. They stared at her, unsure what to say. Captain Morales broke the silence. That was terrifying, he said. Arya turned to him. Good. You really think they'll stop? She looked out the window, where Earth glowed like a blue gem in the distance. No, not yet. Threx tries to regroup despite the broadcast. General Vokter refused to retreat. He issued a fleet-wide order. Push forward. But fewer captains followed his command now. Rumors spread fast that ghosts lived in the walls. That entire ships had been found with every crew member dead, but meals still warm. That Earth had weapons no scanner could see. Vokter tried to silence the fear, but fear was the only thing spreading faster than the ghost strikes. the last message before the day ended. Another short signal hit the Threx communications grid. It had no video. Just a single repeating message, spoken in Arya's voice. Stop now, or watch everything burn. End of Part 5. Cliffhanger. For the first time in centuries, the Threx Empire faced something they couldn't crush, threaten, or understand. They faced a human general who didn't fight for land. She fought for the message, and that message had already begun to reshape the galaxy. The only question left: would they listen before it was too late? The Threx Empire still believed they could win, even after bases vanished, fleets failed, and Arya Kane's message shook their entire command structure. General Vokter refused to retreat. He gathered the rest of his warships, 118 vessels, the largest strike force in Threx history, and aimed them straight at Earth's outer defense ring. He would show the galaxy that the Threx still ruled the stars. But what he didn't know was this: he wasn't marching to war, he was walking into the dark. The Iron Armada moves in perfect formation. Vokter's fleet entered human-claimed space. Thousands of alien soldiers on board, prepped for ground assault. Engineers checked weapon systems. Energy shields charged. Missiles were armed. From space, it looked like a storm made of metal, unstoppable, cold, and wide enough to block starlight. But something was waiting in that darkness. Something that didn't blink. Human command remained silent on Earth. Alarm sounded. Civilian shelters activated. Orbital cannons warmed up. Fighter squadrons scrambled into formation, but no orders were given. Why? Because Arya Kane had already made the only call that mattered. Unit 13. Already inside. Vokter didn't know it, but Unit 13 had been busy. Over the past 24 hours, they had slipped onto 37 Threx ships, sabotaged 19 power cores, cut 14 communication nodes, disabled 11 escape pods. No one had noticed yet, and now they were waiting for one order. The eclipse broadcast at 0400 Galactic Time. Just before the Threx fleet reached Earth's outer line, every Threx ship received a strange signal from a phantom source. It was a woman's voice. You passed the line. You were warned. Now, watch the sky fall. Then silence. And then everything went black. Lights out. Ship after ship lost power. Not just one or two. 42 warships went dark in the span of 18 seconds. Bridge lights cut out. Screens went dead. Engines stopped. Gravity reversed. Thousands of Threx soldiers were thrown against walls and ceilings. Some ships exploded from within, others just floated, quiet and blind. No one could see it coming from Earth's orbital defense grid. Human observers watched through encrypted feeds. They didn't see Earth's missiles launch. They didn't see space battles. They only saw the Threx fleet begin to fall apart. One officer whispered, "Ma'am, they're eating themselves." General Arya Kane stood behind him, arms crossed. Her voice was cold and clear. "They did that the moment they touched me." Ghost Strike Hard. Unit 13 launched. Ghost 01 and Ghost 05 breached the Threx flagship's command deck within 60 seconds. No alarms were triggered. Vokter's crew vanished without a shot. Vokter, standing alone, drew his blade, but no one came through the door. Instead, the lights above him dimmed, and a message played through his personal comm. "Still proud, General? Still laughing?" He turned in panic, but no one was there. Then everything around him exploded. Arya's masterstroke on board the HSS Titanus. Morales watched a fleet collapse. Dozens of Threx ships, dark, broken, or drifting, filled the screen. He turned to Arya. "We didn't even fire a weapon." She replied, "We didn't need to." Threx Empire receives the news across the galaxy. Threx news channels began showing emergency feeds. The mighty Iron Armada defeated without battle. No clear enemy number. War footage. No heroic losses. Just nothing. Entire families began pulling their sons from military service. Colonies shut down recruitment. Threx citizens questioned the war. They didn't know what had killed their fleet, but they all knew one. Name, Arya Kane. Vokter's final stand. Only one ship remained functional. Vokter's secondary command vessel. He stood alone, blood dripping from a wound to his side, staring at the chaos outside. He had one chance left: retreat and beg the Emperor for backup. But before he could speak, the emergency holoscreen activated. Arya Kane appeared, live. Her face was calm, her eyes sharp. "You brought war to Earth," she said softly. "And now you get to watch your legacy drift in pieces." Then her voice turned sharp. "This was never about winning. This was about showing you we don't lose." The last order back on the HSS Titatus, Arya gave a final command: send the beacon. A powerful signal burst through space. It didn't contain words. It was coordinates pointing back to Earth, and one line of text: "The line is drawn. Cross again, and we erase the rest." End of Part 6. Cliffhanger. The Threx Empire had seen war, but they had never seen this. A human general, bruised but unbroken, had shattered their largest fleet without firing a single cannon. She used fear. She used silence. She used the ghosts of Earth. And the sky, once filled with ships, was now empty. Because Arya Kane didn't just command soldiers, she commanded consequences. General Vokter stood alone on the ruined bridge of his secondary command ship. The screens were cracked. Sparks flickered from shattered consoles. His command crew was gone, every one of them. The silence was so complete, even the hum of the engines had vanished. Outside, the wreckage of the once great Threx fleet drifted like a graveyard. And Vokter, once feared across the galaxy, could only stare. He tried to speak. He opened his come to the Threx homeworld. "This is General Vokter," he said. His voice cracked. No answer came. He tried again, louder, angrier. "This is General Vokter. I demand a response." Still silence, because the Threx Empire had stopped answering. Back on Earth, one final transmission. General Arya Kane stood alone in her chamber aboard HSS Titanus. A small, encrypted device lay in front of her. It was linked to only one receiver: Vokter's personal channel. She pressed one button. A recording began to play on Vokter's bridge. It was the moment he kicked her, followed by the silent video of his destroyed fleet. Then, her voice: "Do you remember what you said? You called us soft. You thought we'd bend. You thought fear belonged only to you. Now feel it." Vokter breaks. He dropped to his knees. His weapon slipped from his claws. He looked out at the shattered remains of his pride. His fleet, his legacy. He was a war hero. He was the conqueror of 6 systems. He had never lost until now, and the worst part? He didn't even know how he lost. Threx Empire responds back on the Threx homeworld. Panic spread through the command chain. When news of the fleet's destruction hit the Senate, high-ranking generals began to resign. Some accused Vokter of treason. Others claimed Earth used dark technology. But the people, they whispered one name only: Arya Kane. And they no longer laughed when they said it. A final act of silence. 3 days later, Vokter returned to Threx Prime. He walked off the shuttle alone. No troops. No salute. No speech. Reporters begged for answers. Leaders asked for explanations. He said nothing. He handed in his rank insignia and walked into exile. From that day forward, he never spoke again. Not a single word. Whispers among the troops. Among the younger Threx soldiers, a story began to spread. They said Vokter still heard her voice in his head. That he saw ghost soldiers in his dreams. That he refused to stand near shadows. That he burned every map with Earth on it. No one could confirm it. No one dared ask. On Earth, Kane watches the stars. General Kane returned to Earth in silence. No celebration. No parades. She wasn't looking for applause. She stood on a balcony overlooking Earth's atmosphere and said only one thing: let them fear the silence. Unit 13 returns to sleep far away. In Europa's frozen base, Unit 13 stepped back into their CRYO-pods. Mission complete. No records filed. No medals earned. Their orders were simple. Wait until she calls again. The doors sealed. And the ghosts went quiet once more. Vokter's empty throne in the Threx Military Museum. Vokter's old armor and command blade were put on display. Below the exhibit, a plaque read, General Vokter, hero of the Spine War, lost to the silence. But no one visited it, not even once. End of Part 7 cliffhanger. The galaxy now knew the truth. The Threx weren't defeated by a fleet. They weren't crushed by numbers or weapons. They were broken by one woman, Arya Kane, and a silence that never stopped echoing. And the general who once ruled stars? Now he couldn't even speak his own name. 6 weeks after the Threx fleet vanished, the galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. Trade routes reopened. Border stations resumed scanning. The Threx stopped launching ships, and most importantly, no one dared approach Earth. The Galactic Council demands answers at the core of the galaxy. The ancient Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Dozens of species sat in silence. A hologram of the shattered Threx fleet hovered above them. Broken ships, missing units, black box footage of silent halls and drifting armor. None of it made sense. How did this happen? One ambassador asked. A voice answered from the shadows. You asked us to include the humans. Another added, now look what happened. Earth receives the invitation, back in Earth space. A message came in, encrypted, sealed, signed by all 27 Council worlds. We request peace discussions with Earth. Immediate, urgent, full recognition. The humans read it carefully. They sent one reply. Send it to General Arya Kane. Arya arrives alone. The meeting was held on the neutral space station Astra 9. Massive banners hung overhead. Tension filled every corridor. Dozens of guards watched as a single human ship docked. General Arya Kane stepped out alone. No fleet, no weapons. Just her presence. The silence in the room was louder than thunder. Her words were final. The council leader spoke first. General Kane, we request peace. A formal end to all hostilities between Earth and the Threx Empire. She nodded once. Good. Another alien ambassador leaned forward. But we must ask, what exactly did you do to their fleet? She turned to face them fully. Her words were calm, cold, measured. I reminded them who we are. We warned them. They crossed a line. We didn't fire missiles. We didn't bomb cities. We just erased options. The room fell. Silent. The peace agreement. The treaty was signed within the hour. Earth was given full protection under galactic law. Threx borders were pulled back by 12 systems. No military vessel was allowed within one sector of human space. Arya Kane's name was added to the non-interference list, a warning list. Not of criminals, but of people not to provoke. The human condition, explained after the signing. One young ambassador from a peaceful race asked gently, General, why didn't your people retaliate with open force? You had the power. Arya looked out the window at the stars. Because sometimes showing what you could do is more powerful than doing it. Humans don't start wars. But when you bring one to us, we finish it quietly. You made us show that. Then she left. Just like that. No parade. No applause. Just silence. Unit 13 sleeps on far below Europa's ice. 13 cryopods remain sealed. Waiting. No lights blinked. No alarms rang. Their mission was complete. But they weren't dead. Just asleep. And the system knew what to do if Arya Kane ever whispered the word, return. Threx Empire rebuilds in fear. Years later, the Threx began rebuilding, slowly, cautiously. Avoided Earth space. They sent no scouts past the warning zone. They removed every mention of Arya Kane from their history books, but some officers remembered. They told their sons to never speak her name. And in the darkest halls of military school, new recruits were warned, if you see a human general smile, in silence. Run. Earth moves forward, back on Earth. Arya Kane retired. She planted a small tree in a quiet forest. No medals. No speeches. No one even knew where she went, but veterans who served under her told stories. Stories of a general who fought with shadows, who never raised her voice, who changed the galaxy by refusing to let it break her. Final scene. A warning etched in steel in the Earth Fleet Academy. A new plaque was installed on the wall. Let no insult go unanswered. General Arya Kane, and under it, a warning. For the future, we don't need armies to win. We just need a reason. The end.